This is a police car. They're not too hard to recognize. The giant flashing lights tend to be a dead giveaway. Police cars and other emergency vehicles like ambulances and fire trucks can be pretty cool to watch in parades and on TV shows. But when it comes to encountering these vehicles on the road, they're dead serious. It's important to know how to react to emergency vehicles like these when you're encountering them while driving.
The most important thing to remember when you encounter an emergency vehicle is not to panic. The folks that drive these emergency vehicles have one thing in mind: to keep things safe, and you can help their job out by not panicking and making things unsafe. Keep your head, and everything will work out just fine.
You should always be prepared to encounter emergency vehicles like police cars, fire trucks, or ambulances while you drive. And you'll need to be ready to yield the right-of-way to them. It's pretty easy. You can yield the right-of-way simply by pulling over to the right and coming to a complete stop. Make sure you're clear of any intersections, and then stay where you are. Don't resume driving until the emergency vehicle has passed. Oh, and remember to check your mirrors before you pull back onto the road. Oftentimes there will be more than one emergency vehicle driving to a situation. Don't let it catch you by surprise. Of course, you won't always be able to safely pull over to the right side of the road. Sometimes you might be blocked in by traffic or driving in the left lane when you see an emergency vehicle approaching from behind. In this case, just come to a complete stop and stay where you are. That way the emergency vehicle can maneuver around you without you getting in the way. It's important to remember to stay where you are. Do not move into the lane of oncoming traffic. Only emergency vehicles are allowed to do that. If you see an emergency vehicle approaching from the opposite lane of traffic, you should still react the same way. Pull over to the right if possible and come to a complete stop until the emergency vehicles have passed. The oncoming emergency vehicles may need to use your lane to get around traffic headed in the other direction, so you want to make sure that you leave as much room as you possibly can. Sometimes it might even be necessary for you to drive through a red light in order to let an emergency vehicle get past you. If this happens, carefully check the intersection and drive through the red light, getting out of the way as soon as it is safe for you to do so. If you happen to come upon an emergency scene while you're driving, just move along. Don't be a looky-loo and risk slowing down the traffic behind you just so you can see what's going on. It's none of your business. Just don't worry about it. It's important to remember that in many states it's actually illegal to hang around too close to an accident scene, especially if a fire truck is involved. It's illegal to follow within 500 feet of a fire truck that's proceeding to an accident scene. And it's also illegal to park within 300 feet of a fire truck or any fire equipment that stopped in response to a fire alarm.
Of course, not every police officer that you encounter will be in a police vehicle. Sometimes they'll be on the road themselves, directing traffic.
It's actually a pretty common occurrence. You might see a police officer directing traffic at an intersection where a traffic light has malfunctioned, or an accident scene has occurred. Other times they might be directing traffic at a heavily trafficked business at quitting time, or during a funeral procession. No matter what the reason for the officer being there, their directions and instructions take precedence over any signs or traffic signals in the area. Just pay attention to what they tell you to do, and they'll get you through the area safely.
Of course, knowing what to do when other police officers and emergency vehicles are in the area is half the battle. But what do you do when the emergency vehicle involves you?
Yep, it's bound to happen eventually. For most of us, we'll have an encounter with the police sometime during our lifetimes when we're driving. So what do you do if a police officer drives up behind you and flashes their lights, indicating that they want to pull you over? Well, the short answer is, you pull over. As soon as it's safe, pull over to the side of the road and come to a complete stop. Put your vehicle in park and turn off the engine. That way the police officer will know that you intend to comply with them. As a police officer approaches your vehicle, be sure to keep your hands on the steering wheel and in plain sight. Hiding your hands or grabbing for items suddenly can make police officers a bit jumpy. And since they're carrying guns, that's probably not a good idea. Just sit quietly with your hands visible. The police officer will tell you if they need you to produce your driver's license or your registration and proof of insurance. Remember, just because a police officer pulls you over, that doesn't mean you're necessarily in any trouble. They might just need to talk to you or warn you of a problem with your vehicle, like a broken tail light, for example. Just relax. Everything will be okay. Of course, if you do get a traffic ticket, just take it calmly and politely. Don't argue with the police officer. You can argue it in court if you need to. The police officer may ask you to sign the ticket before they give it to you. Go ahead and do so. Don't worry. Signing a traffic citation only indicates that you've received the ticket. It is not an admittance of guilt. Just sign the ticket so the police officer can be on their way. The proper place to argue a traffic ticket is in the court of law, not on the side of the road. If for any reason you suspect that the police car behind you signaling you to pull over is not a real police officer and might be somebody impersonating a police officer, drive to a police station or to a welded area with a lot of people before you pull over. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Just remember, police officers, just like every other emergency personnel out there on the road, has one thing in mind: to keep things safe for you and for the other drivers out there. By keeping calm and relaxed whenever you're around any emergency vehicles and personnel, it'll make things a lot safer, which will make the emergency personnel's job a lot easier, which will make the whole world a lot easier to drive in.